Welcome to the podcast of the impossible. I'm Peter Wood, and my guest this week is Willard, a mentalist and hypnotist who is such a superstar, he doesn't need a last name. There we go.
Here we are. Quite an introduction.
I was just trying to figure out, like, what and I do think I know that you are from Missouri, and sort of that is a nickname that you're working with. I know the story of that, but what I'm sort of curious about is I know you and I met through Barry's Magic Shop, in Rockville, Maryland, and
Barry and Susie,
and I don't know if I know the answer to this question. Why did you walk into the shop to begin with? Like, what brought you in there initially?
I heard Peter Wood was going to be there some days.
I think that's unlikely.
Peter Wood sightings there. No.
Right.
No. I mean, I think it's no secret that this isn't my full-time gig at least it hasn't been forever.
Right.
And I was just looking for a local magic shop. I had moved here from Missouri.
Okay.
For another job, another opportunity, and was looking for a local community, a local magic shop. And one of my friends, actually, I remember the day I walked in.
Okay.
Because there was one of my show in Branson, and he did something backstage in the dressing room one day, and no idea.
Mm-hmm.
And he, so I came to the magic shop actually hoping to find out how he did what he did.
Okay.
And I found out.
Okay.
I figured it out.
All right. So it was a good visit.
It wasn't Barry or Peter Wood who showed me that. It was actually James. Sure. James.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Awesome.
Do we talk about that on here? I don't know if we.
So James has now become a neighbor, which is awesome.
Neighbor James
through magic. I mean, like that's why he's in this neighborhood now, is because of that. But I didn't realize that So was James behind the counter?
Yeah, I mean, he was just. I guess I don't know if he was working that day or not, but he was there, and I started describing what happened and how it all worked and what the effect was, and I'm like, I have no idea. There's got to be a way, and so he directed me to some books, which I read. And do we talk about methods and secrets and tricks? I don't know how much deep we go on that, but let me just say Moab is what it turned out to be.
Sure.
And so that. I eventually figured. He didn't tell me. He just directed me, and I figured it out on my own.
And Barry had one for sale. I mean,
of course.
Were able to. Okay, cool.
He did.
But so how much magic was in your life before that? Like growing up,
performing, not a lot.
Right.
But I always had been interested in magic. It was a way of escape for me. My background. My dad was a preacher, or he still is.
Sure. And
so it sort of was a fantasy entertainment for me, like the way everyone else these days maybe would get into The Rings or Harry Potter or something else. I read the Abbott's Magic catalog and dreamed about what could that really be like, the description of the tricks, which is always embellished quite a bit.
Okay.
And then I grew up near Branson, Missouri. And there was a theater that came to town, magician from Vegas, of all places.
Nice.
Scandalous. And I would go down to see the show, and it was just crazy.
Was it scandalous, actually? I mean, was it? We've talked a lot about Branson, and how it sort of is like the cleaner Vegas. How do you get a sense that there are shows that come to town from places like Las Vegas and have to change it substantially because it's a different demographic? Or
I mean, when I was a kid, I've subsequently become great friends with the magician I'm talking about. His name's Kirby.
Sure.
And he but when he came from Branson, he had the show with the scantily clad women and the dancing girls and the headdresses and the whole thing. And he came in with this this other guy, Bobby Barasini, who had trained the orangutans for Clint Eastwood's Every Which Way But Loose, I think, was the show. Sure. And so he had this trained orangutan, so it was the magic show and the orangutan act and all of that, and it was all very, very very Vegas, very glitzy.
Nice.
And
Okay.
Kirby ended up being there, and he retired a few, and 30 some years maybe he was in Branson, but
Okay.
the orangutans didn't make it that long.
Okay. That because of natural. I don't want to know. I don't want to.
I wasn't there. I don't know.
No, that's fine. That's fine. So
No, it's interesting. So actually, I was out on the lake there the other day. I just came back from Missouri, and I went out on the lake with some friends. And they're driving around. They say, "Oh, that was Bobby Barasini's house, right up on the cliff." And it's got this balcony thing that comes out over the lake. It's way up high on this cliff.
Okay.
And they say, "Yeah, when he was living there, you could see, and the monkeys would be out there."
Nice.
So,
I'm sure the monkeys
Branson.
enjoyed that. Yeah. Well, but hang on.
Yeah. Okay.
Abbott's Magic Catalog, you don't just that doesn't just hang out at your local library. I want to. How did that get on your radar?
Well, gospel magic.
Okay.
At the youth camp at the church, the magician comes in, and he does. I don't even remember the tricks, to be honest. I just remember thinking, "Oh, wow."
And you were 8?
Oh, a little older, maybe
Older?
2
Okay.
digits, maybe
Okay.
12,
Okay,
10,
sure.
12, 13,
Okay.
12, somewhere in there.
Got it,
Probably
got
10,
it.
12. And so I remember I saved up my allowance.
Okay.
And I asked him, "How do you learn this? What do you do? How do you learn it?" And he says, "Well, you can buy books, you can go to the library," which I did a little bit of that.
Okay.
And then he said, "And then there's a manufacturer in Michigan, Colon, Michigan.
Yep.
And you can order their catalog." And I said, "Oh, I'll order their catalog." And so I figured it out. I called, which required a long distance call back then.
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah.
That's serious.
And it turns out you can buy the catalog.
Right.
And so I gave my dad a quarter, because
Okay.
then he would give me an envelope and a stamp for a quarter
Okay.
that I'd saved for
Okay.
my allowance.
Sure.
And it was something like, $11 or something. So I went to the store, got a cashier's check, and put the cashier's check in the thing, and
that's
sent it
great.
off to Colon, Michigan. And back in the mail comes this.
I mean, I have a couple
Maybe even
somewhere
that. I
here,
mean,
but
a
yeah.
huge.
No, I
thing.
mean, and for our friend listening who may not be a magician, we are talking about a hardbound book that is an inch and a half thick, right?
At least,
like
yeah.
it is
Like,
not.
it would.
Yeah, it is. It is when we think of catalog. I mean, I even grew up with like the Sears catalog, and at least that
This rivaled
was
that.
maybe that's half an inch thick, maybe
Right.
at its bulkiest year, and also was glossy. I mean, like it was like a thick magazine.
Mm-hmm.
The Abbott's Magic catalog was you were buying a book, a proper book,
Right.
So it kind of made sense when you think about the cost. Like, oh, okay, yeah, that's what a book would cost.
Well, and like the Sears catalog would be like a page full of like all the things, there might be 20 things on a page. The
Yeah.
Abbott's catalog, maybe 2 things per page.
Right.
And they weren't
right.
pictures of the things; they were maybe etches of what the effect was supposed to be, and then a
Right.
flowery description that explained
Yeah.
this miracle that you could do for a mere $14
Sure.
plus shipping.
Yep.
And that was after you bought the catalog, right?
Right.
And
Well,
I would spend hours just if all I have to do is send in $14,
Right.
and I will know how to do this.
Right.
Oh, I can fool everybody. I can amaze everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah. No. Well, did you ever get disillusioned by
Every
that?
time.
Every time.
Almost every time.
But it's the definition of insanity where you kept doing the same thing,
Yes.
expecting it. Okay.
Saving my allowance
That's
and
fine,
doing,
all right.
what the floating girl illusion, the Azra.
Oh, okay. Okay. Sure.
And so they had a miniature one, and I remember it was $35.
Okay.
And I won't even tell you how I raised the money for
I
that.
don't- I
But
don't
I lived
wanna
on a
know.
farm. It was great.
Okay.
And so I made the money for that and got it, and it was just very disappointing. The other one I got, and you'll appreciate this
Mm-hmm.
from the Willard and Wood stuff. Actually, the Azra was way down the road, but the first thing I ever bought was how you can take a bill and you disappear it in front of
Okay.
their eyes,
Okay.
and then it appears in a lemon.
Ah, okay.
And
Nice.
I got again, I don't know what
What-
the audience here, but
They're not a magician.
okay, so I got the trick.
I don't want to ruin any
Yeah, and
surprises if they come to see your show.
It didn't
now,
come
you
with
know.
a dollar bill,
Okay,
which was
okay,
provide your own. It didn't
Sure,
come with a lemon, which was provide your own.
Yeah.
But it came with some instructions that didn't make a lot of sense, and
Uh-huh.
couple little things. And,
Sure.
and needless to say, I have been in love with that trick ever since.
Which is, I think, the biggest surprise to me. Like, I remember, again, I had an early experience. It was with the Hank Lee Magic catalog, and it was a pyramid that floats in your hand. All right, and what you got was a piece. It was a metal wire that was supposed to, and there was like a piece of plastic behind it. And the piece of plastic went into your watch, which I was not wearing as a 9-year-old. So again, I had to start wearing a watch, But so the piece of plastic goes in there, and then there's also a piece of wire that goes up in between your fingertips, and then there was a pyramid that would balance on top of that, and the pyramid was made out of cardboard because it had to be lightweight. But they didn't mention that in the instruction. You're expecting this like heavy stone pyramid to be floating off the top of your hand. And what you actually get is this little cardboard thing wobbling back and forth as you're supposedly moving it. And it was just, but I've never wanted to do that trick again. And that's what's interesting to me is that you got burned by the Bill and Lemon, and it still is the white whale you're chasing.
There was a period of time, where of course I'm disillusioned by that, because I mean, like with you, you're like, well, I'm actually going to have the power to float this. Like I'm going to learn the secret to defying gravity.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
And I'm going to learn the secret to this. And then I'll really be able to do this. I don't know what's going on. How old were you?
8
ish. So what's going on in our 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old?
I mean, I knew it wasn't actual sorcery.
Well, sure.
But at the same time, I was not expecting it was a wire from underneath.
Right, correct. Yeah. So time passes, and then I see someone do the Bill and Lemon trick, and that's when it changed. I was like, oh, actually, that would be interesting to watch. Unfortunately, not every other magician agrees it's interesting to watch.
It is a classic for a reason.
Yes,
and it is an
overused phrase.
It is an easy to follow plot, and I think it really just depends on. I've talked with other friends on other episodes about the whole cover band magician thing, and like it's just a tricky, the general, I feel like most people either expect that all magicians do the same 10 tricks, or all magicians do completely different stuff. And when they're, and if anything, probably more the former camp. So I think it's reasonable for people to, we went to see a magic show. What did he do? Oh, he did the card trick. The card trick where you pick a card and he finds it. He did that one. And he did the linking rings, and he did the Bill and Lemon, and he did the one where the egg goes into the bag and disappears. And he started with the bowling ball trick out of the sketch pad. And it was a good show because he did all the hits, and that's not bad. As long as you know that's what you're getting into,
Well, I mean, I think that's an interesting point of the muggles, like the lay people, like a person who decides they're interested in seeing magic, but doesn't, they're not magicians, right?
Yeah.
But they're interested in seeing it. And the question is, what does the general population think that magic is? And as you said, that's what they think. They think it's the Lincoln rings. They think it's the Bill and Lemon. They think it's the cups and balls. Yeah, they think it's those things. And that's, I guess maybe it becomes boring to some magicians. I don't know. Or maybe it's because everybody just ends up doing it the same way, exactly the way it says in the catalog and instructions, right?
Sure.
And that maybe is boring. Because you don't add your personality to it, and you don't, you don't.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on who your earlier influences are, and how and how many of them there were, And actually, I mean, so you see this gospel magician, but then who else? When you're sort of in your formative years, do you recall any other magicians or shows that had some sort of an impact on us? Okay.
Well, so David Copperfield.
Sure.
But I also grew up his television specials, but I
Sure.
never saw him.
Yep, okay.
And I grew up without television.
Okay.
So I didn't see the television specials.
Okay.
I just heard about them.
Interesting.
And so people would talk about them, and I'm like, he made the Statue of Liberty disappear?
Right.
And so in my mind, like all of these crazy, amazing things, and then you start buying the tricks. There was no magic shop. Well, there was a magic shop in town later, but I never really went there early on.
Sure.
And so there's actually an interesting story about the first time I went there, but I'll tell that another time.
Okay.
But so you start learning these tricks, right? And in my mind, since I'd never really seen them, I'd only heard about them or read the description. Then I get them and I say, "Where's the instructions?"
Right.
So what I did, and this is a bit embarrassing, but I guess that's what you do in the world these with this media. Is you
Embarrass yourself?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah, you know, it's full just laying it all out.
That's
there.
true. That's why.
So what I would do for entertainment, we lived, kind of on a farm, and there was a pond in the back and some wooded areas, and so I would get my little tricks together,
Okay.
have my little table, and I would pull it all together, and then I would pretend I was traveling town to town,
Nice.
doing my little magic show.
Oh, that's awesome.
And
okay.
I did that until I was way too old to be playing, to having that type of play.
Yeah. Sure.
That type
Okay.
of pretend.
That's fun.
And so yeah, I did, and then then the real world came, and I
Okay.
I didn't know that unless you had a stage show or you were David Copperfield or you were a traveling evangelist who specialized in children's magic,
Sure.
that you could make a living at this. And so I
Sure. And but then you went other directions for your day job, as it were. But then I'm getting back to the Barry's Magic Shop thing. Like because for our friend listening, I was behind the counter there for, I guess it was 5 years. So basically, when I was growing up, that was the magic shop that I would go to. But it was in Wheaton, Maryland, which was a bit more of a drive for where I grew up. But then I found out that they were moving to a place that was a little closer to me. But also, I was at a good time where I was out of college and I was doing shows, but I could do something during the day anyway. So I went and I hung out there. I mean, worked is a strong word, but I spent time there helping people 2 or 3 days a week. And it was very common for people to come in and say, I had a magic kit as a kid. I loved it. And then I lost interest because I discovered, dating.
girls in life.
Yeah. But now, like, either my kid is into it and I wanted to get something, or honestly, a lot of times it was just, I was driving by and I saw that there was a magic shop here. So, but you sought out Barry's, right? Like you,
I did.
Okay,
Yeah. Well,
okay.
because I had been in Branson and I became, so that first illusion show, big stage magic show
Right.
that I ever saw in Branson. Ultimately, over time, I became friends with him.
Sure.
Kirby Van Birch is his name.
Yeah.
And we're still friends. But I would go to a show and hang out backstage and do this and that.
Uh-huh.
And I said, I need to find a magic community in DC. I need to connect with
Right,
the magic community
okay.
out in the DC area. And Kirby had done this thing, and it was interesting to me. And I said, I'm going to explore that. I knew enough about this and that, but it sort of opened me up to a whole different type of magic.
Okay.
Which is the mentalism, the mind reading, the using intuition to make interesting things happen.
Sure.
And that was interesting to me. And so I started to study it. And, Susie was great. I mean, she sat down with me for hours and would,
This is Barry's wife.
Yeah, Barry's wife.
Mm-hmm.
And for hours and would talk to me about, the art of cold reading and recommend books and other things. And learning how, and cold reading is really just intuition. It's body.
Sure.
It's many things. It's body language. It's just trusting yourself and your instinct. But she spent hours with me teaching me these things, talking to me about them, and that opened my mind to a whole different type of magic. I knew that I would never be good enough at hide the ball under the cup. The cups and balls.
Sure.
Or the linking rings. I didn't believe really I had anything new to add to it.
Okay.
I didn't. So, but when I discovered this new sort of way of presenting interesting things to people that was entertaining more than just where did the ball go? I bet I fooled you.
Okay.
It opened my mind to something new and different. And so I'm really glad that I sought out the local community, and I'm glad Kirby showed me that trick that night and didn't tell me how it was done.
Right,
He
right.
made me figure it out on my own.
So I mean, so it was interesting. Like you sort of had this two-pronged approach of A, I want to learn how this thing was done, but B, it would, I'm enjoying being connected to this magician in Branson. Wouldn't it be cool if I was connected to some other
right.
ones in the
Correct.
in the DC area?
Right, because this is where I live. Bulk
Yep,
of my time
sure.
At the moment, at the time.
That makes sense. Well, and I guess I'm also, so in terms of mentalism, like the sort of tricks that happen in your head as opposed to out in the world, like a visual something. Do you? I mean, you might even be too close to it to know about this, but do you know if you were more interested in it because you could do it? Like you said that you knew that you wouldn't have the acumen to be doing like a sleight of hand,
right?
Where's the ball kind of a thing. Is it because it came naturally to you, do you think? Or is it because you also talked about how like you didn't feel like you could bring much to the table in terms of visual manipulation of objects, but you thought maybe you could bring something interesting to sort of mind tricks?
It suddenly it suddenly made sense to me that this was something that fit my personality more.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt that it isn't easier than magic.
Yeah, agree.
It just
it's different.
It's just different,
yep.
right? And it interested me more. Like I wasn't interested in spending hours in learning a sleight.
Yeah.
I wasn't interested in that, or learning how to move a card from the top to the bottom and take 6 months learning that particular move, right?
Sure.
I knew I didn't have the interest enough to be disciplined enough to do that.
Right. Right.
But with these other things, which are not easier, it's actually in some ways more difficult, because it's more about the presentation than the method or the effect or the trick of itself. Yeah. And it was something I'd never seen before.
That's cool. Well, and it's harder to practice, I think, too. Like I know the move monkeys that I'm friends with, you can train your muscles better than you can anticipate the choices of audience members, or not even the choices, the whims or the misunderstandings or whatever, And so I know a lot of times, like, it is just hard. You put together something, and if you're doing mind reading, you need someone's mind to read, and there's only so much of that you can do. Sitting,
and I liked that
in front of a mirror.
I liked it more because
you're
sort of are in the deep end of the pool.
Yeah, it's true.
You learn sort of what you need to do and how to direct a conversation or whatever to get the outcome.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about it is it's not the same every time.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, when you're connecting with somebody like I like to do on a personal level, which is hypnosis, or whether it's through doing something interesting with mind magic or mind, games, it doesn't always work the way you expect it to.
Sure. Yeah.
Whereas if you're doing the card move, and the card move doesn't work, then that's it.
You messed it up.
Yeah. You clearly have made a mistake.
And probably you certainly know, but it's more likely that other people know as well.
Right.
Yeah.
But with this, it's really just about connecting with people. And at the end of the day, if they enjoy hanging out with you and you enjoy hanging out with them, it doesn't really matter what happened in the moment.
Yeah.
All of those things are just, it doesn't have to happen exactly the way you expect it to.
Right.
And that's both scary and comforting to me.
Sure. Do you know how this episode ends? How did you expect it to end?
This episode
right now,
this podcast.
If you don't know how things are going to end or whatever, guess what? This is it.
What is my prediction?
No, this is
I'm guessing that there's going to be some outro music. That's my prediction.
That's a fair. Okay.
At some point there will be music, and we'll know that that's
good.
it, and you'll have something to say.
I should. Well, and
we'll agree to do it again in the future.
I would love that.
That's my prediction.
As long as we cannot change our clothes, that's all I vote. When we get together and do this again, let's just take a note of what we're wearing for our friend who is watching it on the video. Actually, for our friend watching, this whole time underneath the screen, we've had some socials and website stuff. But just a quick shout out if you're listening to this, if you want to find more about Willard, you can head on on over to the social medias. That is willardsparlor.com. So that's Willard, Willard, and then S, because it's Willard's, possessive. And then Parlor, we're doing the European spelling of that. So that's Parlour. So Willard's Parlor, or if you can head on over to hellowillard.com to find more information about that. And that's it for this episode. For my public shows and social media and special projects and more, you can head on over to oftheimpossible.com. I'm Peter Wood. Thanks.
Oftheimpossible.com. That's new. Good.